Well. Never thought the day would come where I would be talking, let alone reviewing something related to Attack on Titan. But here we are. Main reason why I'm saying this is because getting this game physically is a freaking pain. Physical copies of this game are expensive, and knowing this game is made by Koei I, I am not willing to slam 100 or more euros on this game. And on top of that, I am not that big of a fan of Attack on Titan, so yeah, the chances of playing this game were always very small. Yet the interest in reviewing it always remained, and by a stroke of luck, I was offered a shot at reviewing it on acceptable terms. Now again, I didn't expect to ever review this game, but honestly, looking at my channel, it should fit in perfectly. I mean, the channel is obviously mostly based on weeb games with warrior games sprinkled in between. And this game falls under both categories, so that's a huge plus. But funnily enough, even my collector's nature popped in here as well, as it would just be cool to have Attack on Titan content on my channel. I actually have multiple games on the to-do list for that exact same reason. But what led me mostly to this game is, well, I just felt like playing a Warriors game. Because my monkey brain just feels good when numbers become big numbers, and I just want to feel good. So yeah, that's how we got here, and without further ado, let's just jump in and see what Attack on Titan 2 has to offer. In Attack on Titan, humanity has been at war for ages against the Titans. However, humanity is losing this war, as these large, barely dressed humanoid creatures are pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. For the sake of survival, the remnant of humanity retreated behind large walls that protected them from the Titan threat. And for centuries, these walls did exactly that. Humanity survives and to a degree is at peace. However, this peace comes abruptly to an end when two unknown large Titans appear. With a single action, these two destroyed both the outer wall and inner wall gates. With Titans now flooding in, humanity is pushed back to its inner walls and brought closer to extinction than ever before. Yet humanity is rising up and fighting back. The generation that witnessed this horror event unfolding are rising up and wants to not just fight for humanity's survival, but also achieve victory. And you are one of those people. Having lost your parents in these events, you decided to join the military, avenging your parents and take back humanity's freedom. The game follows very actively the story of Attack on Titan. To be precise, it follows the events of the 2 seasons of the anime, or if you're a manga reader, 50 chapters. However, and this is the reason why I'm reviewing the second game over the first game, as in this game you get to play as your own character and play a little role in the main story yourself. Be that fighting in key battles of the story, interact with characters, and to a degree explore the world itself. Which to me is just a much more interesting perspective than just a game that follows a story that is already told in a different media. And on top of that, this game covers a larger piece of the story than the first game, and that is without including the DLC. However, while having your own character in a story is great, especially if you're a fan of this particular world, characters and/or story, it should still, in my opinion, serve a purpose beyond just you having your own character there in the story. And on that front, the game does struggle quite a bit, because it seems like the overall game does not know how or what story to tell. It tries very much to follow the anime story and at first seems to really succeed at that. In fact, it seems to add more to it than the anime by giving us loads of character interaction moments that flesh these characters out much better, making them look like a lot more than just Titan fodder. All in all, the first 2 chapters of the game offer a very good story experience and even can serve as an entry point for someone who never touched Attack on Titan before. But then, after those chapters, the story is continued to be told, but with a lot less details, and later on even starts to gloss over basic story moments, which are actually quite important for the entirety of the story. Making this part of the story feel like it was designed for the anime watchers whom can fill in the gaps with the memories of the anime or the manga even. Which not only makes this story feel very cheap, but it also just wastes all of the work that has been put into the first part of the story. So you might now think, well, that's a shame, but at least you also have a story that involves your own character, right? they probably have some role in the story to play as well that you can follow and enjoy. And yes, that is true. Your character has its own role to play and more or less shadows the main story. But you do have your own role in the end, training alongside the characters of the anime and doing your own missions during their first deployment. Even splitting off from the group early to go on a little path on your own. But this is also where the game again starts to struggle, as everything that involves your character in terms of story is all very shallow and more or less fanservice role-playing than an actual story. If you ever wanted and dreamt to be a cadet in the Attack on Titan universe and have known characters that you like and love praise you into the heavens like you are the chosen one of this story, then this kind of writing will do just fine for you. It's the absolute dream fulfillment. Again, a sort of fan service. But I found this writing to be off-putting. Not only does it ignore the dire situation we are in, like humanity is close to losing the war, everyone is risking their lives and most will probably die at the first combat deployment. But on top of that, I just felt like the story lacked focus and more importantly, ambition. To me, it seems like the designers just could not make up their mind and decide between telling the anime story and have the player experience that story from start to finish, or telling a new perspective of the same story with a self-created character shadowing it with its own story. Ironically, playing and biting through the pain that our Sword Art Online games taught me one thing, it is that having unique characters, story and goals shadowing an existing story is a much better way to not just enrich the existing series, but it also gives fans much better room to explore, immerse and ultimately enjoy it. And while Attack on Titan 2 really tried it, in the end it was indecisive and landed itself in some kind of limbo state of telling a story, which just didn't work for me at all. Now what did work for me was the combat. Now, as previously stated here and in other reviews covering warrior games, I just like the big numbers becoming bigger numbers aspect these games have to offer. My monkey brain just likes that once in a while, but here it is actually a totally different case. Oh, well, maybe not that much of a difference, but here there is a notable difference from other warrior games, and I love it. In Attack on Titan, fighting these titans is all about maneuverability, speed and timing, striking their weak spot at the right time. Here in the game they tried to mimic exactly that through game mechanics and mix that with the aspects warrior games are known for, leading to a mix of power fantasy with some tactical elements, which for a warrior game is not quite as common and even pretty profound. You lead a squad through many different missions with the objectives to help other squads or members of your regiment while achieving certain goals and taking down as much titans as possible. To take them out, you have to strike the before mentioned weak spot, the nape. And while the task sounds simple enough, it can sometimes be a little bit tricky, as titans come in all forms and shapes. While normal titans feel like easy prey or even just zombies, the abnormal ones can give you a rough time in timing your attacks of optimal damage. Of course, things can get worse and they can even counter your attacks, putting you or your team in a dangerous position. To avoid this, you can focus on individual body parts. Taking these out immobilizes the target, making it easier to target and strike on their weak spot. Taking down titans again and again feels just very satisfying, especially when you can chain these kills together. The sense of speed and precision makes it a lot of fun even when most titans you face are mindless zombies and taken care of in a single hit. In fact, fighting those titans is much more fun than fighting challenging titans, as the overall satisfaction of a kill is much higher than the satisfaction of the combat itself. During your missions you can and will face unique titans that require a little bit more tactic to take down. But it boils down to taking a second HP bar down first by targeted highlighted body parts. Once that HP bar is gone, it gets stunned and you will deal the original damage to whatever part you decide to attack. However, unlike the normal titans that fall with a good precise attack, these titans don't. They are HP sponges that you will have to grind away, which again is a lot less fun. It takes away a little bit of the idea of tactic. Yes, positioning and striking from the correct angle deals more damage, but it's more time effective to just rinse and repeat any attack through their weakened state. And the further you get in the game, the more often you are challenged with these kind of titans, which results in the end that the combat does get very mundane and less fun once this stage is reached. Because again, the satisfaction comes from the kill, not the combat itself. There are things you can do to get past this stage or even postpone it for a long time. Like if you recruit the right people in your squad. You can instruct them to use abilities which involve simple things like normal attacks, but also to heal you, boost damage, or special attacks that deal massive damage. And it's that damage that will make the difference, of course. So in late game, it is especially key to keep an eye out in your missions for the right companions to be added on your squad, as the higher the difficulty becomes, the more sponges all titans will become, which includes the normal ones. Another way to keep your damage up is of course making and upgrading equipment. It's a very standardized system, to be fair. You can craft better gear and then upgrade and reinforce them as you go. Each increases the stats in different ways and use resources you collect on your missions. Keeping your stats as high as possible is of course your priority. The better they are, the faster, better and more difficult missions you can do. However, keeping my gear up to date turned into a much bigger grind than I anticipated, because I refused to simply use the best gear the game had to offer. Why did I refuse it? I mean, look at this. This looks dumb, ridiculous, completely unsuited for the setting, and if used, breaks the complete atmosphere and setting of the game. I mean, it's great it offers good stats, but you can't tell me every person who worked on this game was creatively bankrupt and therefore could not design more weapon skins closer to the original blades? I guess not, but refusing to use these is a personal choice. You can still do it, but if you want to stick closer to the lore, atmosphere and the setting itself, you have no option but to grind your gear together. And grinding this together is of course done in various ways, like scout missions, improving character relationships and replaying the story missions. These things all have different names, but in the end they all involve just killing huge amounts of titans. Which again is a grind, but depending on the circumstances, is a lot of fun. But in terms of mode, things could be better. Much better. And thankfully the DLC provides exactly that. While I normally do not advocate for DLCs in my reviews, I would strongly recommend that if you want to play this game, you gotta grab the DLC with it as well. With it, you not only are heavily depending on gear stats and difficulty curve for the game to be fun, but it adds a degree of diversity to your playthrough that will keep you more invested to play. With the DLC, a couple of modes are added on to the game. One of them is character mode, which is presented as small story chapters for individual characters you meet in the main story, but in reality it's just a story patch where the events of Season 3 are added to this game. Unfortunately, as this is DLC, the story is even less impressive in terms of presentation. The base game had some great cutscenes and uses the anime as a template for them, but in the DLC it are mostly still images where the characters talk to each other back and forth. It also adds the gun weapons from Season 3, which I really didn't like. The gameplay feels a lot less impactful as you are basically shooting the enemy from a safe distance, and the overall speed of the combat feels a lot more toned down. Which is a shame, because both of these aspects were actually the strength of the base game's combat, not the weakness. The other mode that gets added is called Territory Recovery Mode, which is the most interesting mode that could have been added to the game, and in my opinion should have been in the base game. In this mode you get to create your own regiment and travel across the land, recruiting members, gathering resources and intel, and of course fighting titans, driving them off the land and reclaiming it for humanity once more. It's freaking cool, and Attack on Titan lent itself for something like this perfectly. So it's therefore a damn shame that the game again fumbles this entire idea by not being remotely ambitious with it. As is almost common in this game, everything, be that managing your regiment to actually recovering the land, to even as simple things as designing your regiment logo, is just very shallow. Yes, it reaches a level of effort that you can call this a different mode to sell with the DLC, but actual content-wise, this is the bare minimal and should have been a lot more than it is. Yet, despite that, if you are interested to play Attack on Titan, I would still recommend playing it with the DLC rather than without it. Again, despite its weaker story and bare minimal content addition, it gives you more things to divvy up the game enough to not get burned out by it at a fast rate. And if you are considering playing this and you are somewhat of an Attack on Titan fan, then this game is just perfect for you. As mentioned before, the story captures most of the anime story, and your own character basically gets the fan fantasy position you probably always dreamt of. And the combat itself captures the fighting of the anime very well. It feels fast and impactful, making killing countless titans in a row very satisfying. And if you keep up with the gear and difficulty curve, the mundane feeling that the combat can get will be kept at bay for a while. So even if you're not a fan of Attack on Titan but do want a fun warriors game, this game is still an option. Of course, there are some things to consider, but I think the bigger fan you are of Attack on Titan, the easier it is to get over them. The main one, of course, is that the game is a warriors game and it comes with its typical problems like the before mentioned enemies that are HP sponges. The grindy nature of doing the same mission over and over again is also a recurring thing. If you expect the combat to go beyond what it originally introduces, then you're going to just be disappointed. Then there is the price tag, which I will have to put a big asterisk on. With the DLC, the game costs €70 and there's no way I would recommend anyone to pay that price for a game. Get this game plus DLC on sale, which usually is half the price. That is a fair amount for this game in my opinion. Anything above that is just way too much and is only worth paying if you truly are a huge Attack on Titan fan.